purpose of today is two parts. Number one, and primarily, it's education. Okay, so the front half of our phone conversation is going to be all about education. Like I shared with you before, my first mentor used to tell me that number one, we know that 87% of Americans have never sat down and had a one-on-one conversation specifically about retirement. So if almost 9 out of 10 people don't really have a clue about what's going on, then this holds true. If there's 1% doubt or 1% confusion, people just rather stay where they're at because they're afraid of making a mistake. So I always keep that in mind. And so I always tell folks at the end of my presentation, if you say, man, this sounds almost too good to be true, then I've done my job. Okay. So we're going to have some education, and then I'm going to actually show you some real numbers. And this would be my recommendations. Okay. So we'll go ahead and get started, get into the information. So first off, our executive team is myself and my business partner, Mr. Wences Navarro. I'm CEO of Finline Financial. He is the Chief Marketing Officer. We've been in the industry over 15 years. We've helped thousands of clients. And we've got about 50 agents nationwide, but our headquarters is in Prosper, Texas. Okay, so it's a suburb of North Dallas. And so we provide strategic and dedicated retirement planning and asset protection for everyday folks. And the way that we do that is really by trying to not put a circle into a square peg, right? We want to make sure that we look at what's important to you, what are your objectives, and then what we do is we try to connect you with the appropriate carrier. Meaning if I worked for Fidelity, I'm going to tell you why Fidelity is the best thing around because that's all I have. But that's not how I work. For me, I look at what's important to you, and then I go find the appropriate company, the appropriate product, and then the appropriate index for you, okay? So before we get into the information any further, there's a couple of key points that I want to highlight, and so I'm going to continue to come back to these throughout our presentation. The first is there are three things that kill retirement strategies. Number one is market volatility. That's the ups and the downs of the market. And mathematically, John, the closer you get to retirement, the more catastrophic loss could be. And I'm going to show you that mathematically. Number two is taxes and fees. I think number two could be number one. And that's just really, people don't understand that later on down the line, even if they amass a big nest egg, they're going to have to give a massive amount of that away in taxes. So this is why people run out of money. You've probably heard that before. Number three is inflation. I read an article that said that if your money and or your income didn't grow at 7.1% or more last year, then you got to pay decrease. Okay. So these three things I'm going to continue to make mention to throughout our presentation. So let's get into what we call the 4 pillars of retirement investing. So essentially it's number one, that there are 3 ways to grow your money. Number 2 is the power of compounding interest. Number 3 is understanding truly how losses and gains work. And number 4 is understanding the importance of taxes and fees. So essentially, sir, there are 3 ways to grow your money. Number 1 is a fixed account. That's where they're going to give you 2.5%, 3%, maybe even 4% fixed, no matter what, come hell or high water. And that's pretty good when the market is down because you're still gaining some points. But when the market turns and everybody else is making 8, 9, 10%, and you're still stuck at 2, 3, or 4, that's where it stinks. Now, the second is variable. And variable is where about 80% of Americans are, because this is where your 401ks are, your 403bs, 457s, and your IRAs. Okay. And essentially that means that you no longer, and I'm going to dig a little bit deeper, so forgive me if you already know this. The reason that happens is because you put cash into an account, like let's say a 401k. It doesn't remain cash, right? It's converted into stocks, bonds, or mutual funds. So it's in shares of particular types of things. So when the value go up, your money goes up. But when the value of those shares go down, your money goes down, right? So that's the majority of folks. Now, what we're going to talk about today is something we call index, okay? Now, indexing is not to be confused with an index fund. See, an index fund is just another type of variable account. Indexing, if you're taking notes, sir, I would strongly recommend that. Indexing is a way that we credit interest to a client. So it's interest crediting system. It's a way we earn, okay? And so the idea behind indexing is that when the market goes up, you make money. But when the market goes down, you hold right where you're at. So what happens is it's gain, hold, gain, hold. Gain. So it creates that stair step. The idea for you would be, I never lose again, but I can also grow as much as the market grows. And sir, this is exclusive to the insurance industry. And this is why sometimes people say, well, how come I've never heard of this before? Because most of us have only worked with folks in the financial industry, which is your Edward Jones and your Schwabs and your Fidelity folks who keep you in the market. This is essentially taking you out of the market and putting you into the insurance umbrella. So let me continue to explain. So, John, have you ever heard anybody say, as long as you stay in the market long enough, you'll always win because the market is cyclical and it always corrects itself? You've heard that before?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is an example of the S&P 500 from 1999 to 2001. Okay, so it's 21 years, basically 22 years. So the reason I did that is because they say that cycle is 7 years. So it says the market corrects itself every 7 years. Well, this is a 22-year period, so it would have corrected itself 3 times, right? So let's say you had an account of $100,000, right, as you can see here. And let's say it's an IRA in a variable account. Now remember, variable goes up and down, okay? So right out of the gate, you see it drops down to 59, fights its way back up to 99, drops again to 61, fights its way to 219, which is the ultimate high, and then it drops again at 168, okay? Does this up and down sound familiar?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you always win by staying in the market was true, right? Would you agree that a 2.5% return on your money over 21 years, is not good, right? So I tell people, this is your definition of winning. I don't want that type of winning, okay? But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the exact same time frame on the S&P 500, but instead of an account that is variable, I'm going to show you an account that is indexed, okay? And you could see right out of the gate the difference, massive difference, okay? So how did that happen, Mario? Every time this variable account, like let's call it an IRA, okay, drop, the indexed account holds. Every time that variable account goes up, the index account goes up as well. Drop, hold, goes up, goes up. So see, the idea is Mario, I want to be able to, the playoffs are on. And I know you're in Galveston, so you're probably an Astros guy, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm a Rangers guy, so don't hold that against me. But I knew they were going. There's no way possible you are going to sweep the Astros. They ain't going to happen. They're just too good and too deep. But anyhow, it's like I tell my clients, it's like going into the batter's box, and you cannot strike out. You will never strike out. So what we do is we swing for the fence every time because you can't strike out, and that's what indexing is like. Okay. Now the next slide is understanding truly how losses and gains work in the market. So let me give you an example. Let's say you had $100,000, and again, in a 401k, and that's variable, goes up and down, and the market drops by 25%, okay? That means that you now have $75,000 in value in that account. So, sir, if the market dropped 25% this year, but then gained 25% next year, did you make your money back?
I didn't lose.
Well, you did in a variable account, right? So you lost 25%, so now you're at $75,000 value, because if you cashed it out, it would be at 75,000, right? But if you got 25% back next year, did you make your money back? The answer is actually no. You would need 33% growth to make $75,000 back to 100. So you mean I only lost 25, but I need 33 to get back? Yes. Okay. And here's the other thing. Anytime you lose more than 15%, statistically, it's going to take you 8 years to get it back. So you're 57 years old, right? So what are we looking at? That would make you 65 just to get whole again, right? And this is why I tell you, loss, the closer you get to retirement, can be catastrophic, right? $100,000, if you lost 33%, you would need a 50% growth to get back to 100 in 8 years. $100,000, you lost 50%, you would need 100% growth in 8 years. So, John, these first couple of slides, all I'm trying to do is help you to at least get your wheels turning to challenge what we have always thought to be true. Well, Mario, the only way to hit a home run is to, put yourself in the box, and you also have to risk it striking out. That's not true anymore. Okay. The only way to make big gains is to stay in long enough. Mathematically, we just see that that's not true either. Okay. So with that being said, sir, let's talk about the power of compounding interest. So how do we make our money grow like that snowball? Okay. And the way that we do that is we calculate that out using the rule of 72. So have you ever heard of the rule of 72?
No.
Okay. So the rule of 72, it's a basic math equation that we use to calculate how fast or how slow your money will double. And now this is going to be based on your interest rate that you're earning. So if you were earning 1% interest on an account, okay, they plug it into the equation. 72 divided by 1, which is the interest rate, means that it's 72 years. So your money would double in 72 years if you were at 1%. So for instance, if you open up an account at $10,000 and you were earning 1%, at 72, you'd have 20. I always joke and say, man, I hope you open this up when you're 6 months old. Because, if you open it up anytime later than that, you're never going to see any growth, right? The next is 4%. Okay. So let's say we plug that into the equation. 72 divided by 4, which is the interest rate, comes out to 18. So that means 10 becomes 20 at 18 years, right? And then it becomes 40 18 years later. Ultimately, at 72, now you have 160,000. That's a lot better than 20. Okay. Now it can get better though. Now notice when I move from 4 to 6, that's just 2 points. There's going to be a dramatic change. From 72 divided by 6, which is the interest rate, comes out to 12 years. Every 12 years, your money doubles, leaving you at 640,000. Now, sometimes people say to me, Mario, how in the world did it get so big by just moving the needle 2 points? So if you're taking notes, 5.5 to 6, probably closer to 6, is what we call the tipping point. That's where your money kind of goes crazy in that snowball. What snowball? Best example ever. Remember when we were young, Warner Brothers, Looney Tunes cartoons, right? Where they would push the snowball down the mountain, and as it got bigger, it just started eating everything in its path, and it got bigger faster. That's the tipping point. That's when your money becomes a snowball at 5.5 to 6% or more. Okay. Now, if you had 12% that you were growing, you plug it into the equation, your money would grow at 6 years, it would double. Every 6 years, 10 becomes 20, becomes 40, becomes 80, becomes 160. Ultimately, at 72 years, now you have $40.9 million. And sir, this is just math. This is just math, and this is how interest works. But there's one thing that I like to point out here that most people don't pick up on. Do you notice that in every single equation, there is no loss? It is gain stacked on top of gain, stacked on top of gain, right? And the only way to do that, sir, is to use index, like we talked about. Grow and hold, grow and hold. Compounding interest is so powerful. Even Albert Einstein said it's the 8th wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it. Okay. So as we transition, sir, now we're going to talk about fees. And this is one that is particularly important for you. Okay. Because you've got a couple of 401ks and 457s and IRAs. So you are being charged fees on those products. Do you have any idea what your fees look like right now, sir?
Not offhand, no.
Yeah, I will tell you, you're not in bad company. Most people are the same. In fact, I'd say about 8.5 to 9% of people, or 8.5 to 9 out of 10 people, have no clue what they're being charged in fees. Okay, but let me give you an example of how powerful fees can be when they're working against you. And here's the reason why. Did you know that fees compound or snowball just like that interest does, right? And most people don't know that. So let's say you were putting $3,600 a year into an account, and this account was growing at 8% for 35 years. That's compounding, right? And based on what we just saw with the rule of 72, 8% would grow pretty fast, right? So if you were being charged no fees, that 3,600 at the end of year one with an 8% growth is 3,888. Okay. And then that happened, that kept compounding for 35 years. You would have $669,000, right? Because you're getting charged no fees. Now, let me just add in a very small fee, 0.95%. And the reason I say that is because 0.95% doesn't sound aggressive, right? The average person would be like, it's not even 1%, right? Well, that would be $140,000 in fees you would pay over 35 years. Look at the difference in the amount that you actually have to retire on. Okay, significantly different. Okay, now the next is 2%. 259,000 in fees and only 410 left to live on. Right? It went from 670 basically to 410. And at 3%, you're going to have more in fees over the 35 years than you actually have to live on. So before I go any further, I want to tell you, sir, my recommendation here in just a few minutes has 0 fees and 0 charges. So all that money will stay with you okay? So with that being said, let me share with you a few minutes really quickly what we do with our firm. So for folks that are still working and they're still trying to amass like this nest egg, right? I'm in my 20s, my 30s, my 40s, my 50s, and we're still trying to save. We do what are called tax-free retirement strategies. Basically, we show them how to save and grow tax-free, okay? But for folks who are already in the space where they're getting ready to retire or they're retired, we do a lot of 401k, IRA, or Roth rollovers and reviews. We do work with 403bs and 457s, college planning, debt elimination, some annuities, life insurance, and then we do a ton of different types of for small business and large business. Okay. So with that being said, sir, we're going to transition into now my recommendation. But before I give you my recommendation, I want to finish up with some education. So what I recommend for you is what we call a fixed indexed annuity. Okay. Now, I always tell folks, this is not the annuity that you might have taken a look at before, because number one, it's under the insurance umbrella. Okay. It's completely different than what most people have ever put their eyes on. But what is a FIA, a fixed index annuity? Well, an annuity is a financial instrument issued and backed by an insurance company that provides protection, growth, and income for life should you decide to kick on that rider. Now, an annuity is not an insurance policy, even though it is issued by the insurance company. An annuity is not an investment because remember, your money will no longer be invested into shares, stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. It remains in cash. Your money is no longer in the market. Okay. An annuity is very much like a promise to pay contract between the client, you, and the insurance company. Essentially, it's like saying, okay, insurance company, I've got X amount of money, and I'm thinking about putting it in your vaults. I'm thinking about storing it and saving it with you. But what are you going to do for me? What benefits are you going to give to me? Well, here they are. Okay. Number one is it's going to provide you a guarantee against loss, a ground floor. Okay. Number two is it allows the client to participate in growth using the index crediting system. So number one, we put a ground floor in this thing. You'll never lose again. But number two is it'll allow you to swing for the fences because whenever the market does good, they will credit you the growth of the market without having to worry about the loss of the market. Okay. It has no fees or charges, and I mean 0. Okay. And it's designed to provide income through a process of protection, accumulation, and annuitization. So here's a few more benefits. you are guaranteed to walk away with your initial premium. So if you were to roll in that 72 now and then down the road the rest, whatever you roll in, that's guaranteed to have a rock bottom. Okay. Number two is every year you can change the index that your annuity is growing at. So like let's say year one, you say whatever the S&P 500 does to the good, credit me that. But year two, you say, let's try NASDAQ. Year three, you say, how about Barclays? How about, balanced asset 5? Most of my clients, sir, they just stay on one. But every now and again, I'll have somebody who says, no, I know the markets. I understand them. So I can move it around every year, just trying to maximize my growth. Because remember, there's no loss. Yes. Okay. It also, like we talked about, provides a ground floor. And there are riders available to provide additional coverage should long-term care expenses arise. So with that being said, one final slide, and then I'm going to kind of ask for any questions. But why should I consider making adjustments? Okay. Well, first and foremost, this is a big one. Fractional reserve banking is gone. Sir, have you ever heard of the term fractional reserve banking?
No.
Okay. So fractional reserve banking is the law that has been around forever that says your bank and mine has to keep a small percent, a fraction of our money in their vaults at all times. Okay. It's actually 10%. Now, in 2020, during the pandemic, the federal government quietly told all the banks, you don't have to have a reserve anymore. Go out and take that 10% and try to do what you can to make money to keep the doors open, right? And it wasn't until 2022 that the federal government started recommending that they replenish these reserves. So what I'm getting at, sir, is there's really no way to tell if the money you see on your phone app or your computer screen is actually in the reserves. In fact, let me give you a real world example. Remember at the beginning of this year, 5 banks went down?
I don't remember.
Yeah. At the beginning of this year, 5 banks shut down. The first 2, one was called Signature Bank and the other was Silicon Valley Bank. Those 2 went down because people came calling. They said, hey, you know what? I'm going to move all my money. And they were like, oh, yeah, about that. We don't have enough money to settle you. Imagine going to Vegas in a jackpot, walking over to the guy, and he says, oh, yeah, here's an IOU. We don't have any cash to settle you, right? That's scary, okay? Now, here's what the insurance company provides. They are rock solid. In the 200 plus year history of the insurance industry, not one insurance company has ever folded. And one of the main reasons for that is the state guaranteed fund says that they have to keep 75% of all of our money in their vaults at all times. So on one hand, you have the banks that used to be told you got to hold 10% in there at all times, and they wiped that out. The other side, you have the insurance company that keeps 75% in at all times, and that's never been compromised. In fact, the insurance companies are so strong that all of our banks started investing in bank-owned life insurance. That's what BOLI is. Have you ever heard of BOLI, sir?
No.
So it stands for bank-owned life insurance. And I can provide you documentation that shows you how Chase, Wells Fargo, B of A, US Bank, all the big ones, they're investing billions of our dollars into the insurance company. And they were doing so much, sir, that the federal government had to put restrictions on it. They said, hey, y'all are making too much money and you're going to become, a monopoly. So you have to stop. Okay. So my question to my clients is if my bank and yours loves the insurance company so much that they had to get restricted, how come we don't know about that? And the simple answer, John, is because they can't make money off of your money and then go and invest it again if they told you. So the easiest answer that I give to people when they say, what do you do? I said, I skip the bank and I take them to the insurance company so that they can grow their money safe and guaranteed, just like the bank does. Because nothing else provides protection against loss, growth opportunities, and income for life with no fees like a fixed index annuity, okay? So before we move into your actual recommendations, sirs, What did you like most about what we've covered so far? What was the piece that kind of grabbed you the most?
Not losing, growing,
Yep. Yep.
not being
Okay. So
tied to the market, and I don't have to worry about what's going up and what's going down because
I love
everybody's
it.
got insurance.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. I love that. Okay, good. So let me go ahead now then and switch over screens real quick. And I'm going to show you my recommendations. Okay. Uh, and I'm not going too fast. I'm keeping it pretty simple.
Yeah. If I
Okay,
can
good.
understand it, you're doing fine.
You
My
know,
problem is going to be remembering it to tell it to my wife.
well, the other piece to the puzzle, sir, is if we need to do another call and do this with your wife, I'm more than happy to do that. Okay. Um, so let's talk about my recommendation. Okay. So first off, before we go too far, let's talk about F&G, the company. Why I like recommending F&G is there's three reasons. Okay. And I'm going to show you two right now in the third in a few minutes. Number one is F&G's money management firm is named BlackRock. Have you ever heard of BlackRock, sir?
In various terms.
Yeah, Black.
The what is it? The private armies type thing. Wasn't that it?
They base the BlackRock is essentially the largest money management firm in the world. Okay, and so they manage F&G's funds. BlackRock is so large that if they were a country, they'd be the third largest country financially, only behind the US and China. Okay. Why is that important to you? Because your money is rock stinking solid. It's not going anywhere. They have $23 trillion under management. Okay. That's number one reason. Number two reason I like it is because BlackRock is so big and strong, they give really good growth numbers. So they're going to grow your number pretty aggressively. Okay. Now, keep this number 10 in your mind. I'm going to come back to that in a few minutes. Okay. So the company's F&G. The product is called the Power Accumulator 10. Okay. But now let's talk about how we're going to grow the money. Okay. So what's going to happen is your money is going to mirror the growth of a particular index. Okay. And an index is like the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, like that. Okay. So let's take a look here. So my recommendation is that you follow the CIBC Balanced Asset 5. Okay. That's the index. So that Balanced Asset 5 is just like the S&P 500. Okay. Now, the way that they're going to credit you money, and I see you kind of straining there. So let me see if I can break it up a little, bring it up. Is that better?
Yeah.
The
I'm
way
able
that they're going to credit,
to.
the way that they're going to credit you, by the way, I'm going to email this to you afterwards, okay?
Okay.
Is they're going to credit you interest on a yearly basis. So no longer, I don't know if you're the guy who logs in every day and checks where you're at, and some people log in every hour. They're like, oh man, it moved 10 bucks. Oh, it dropped 50 cents. And they're just kind of, if you're that guy, you might get bored because all year it's going to be the same. Okay. So it's not going to move. Now, at the end of the year, what they're going to do is they're going to calculate the interest that you earned and they're going to give you one deposit. Okay. And they do that using what's called a 1 year point to point strategy with participation. So think of the participation here, sir, as a bonus. Okay. And your current bonus is 225%. Okay. So, Mario, what the heck does that mean? Let me show you. Okay. Um, pull this up. Sorry. So I'm going to show you. Have you ever heard of 1 year point to point crediting? Most people, by the way.
No.
Okay. Remember, your money is going to mirror the balanced asset 5, and they're going to credit you on an annual basis. And the way they're going to credit you is by doing this calculation. Okay. So see, you should see a screen that says 1 year point to point on the top left side.
Yes.
Okay. So let's say tomorrow your account went live. What they do on day one is they take a snapshot and they say, where was the balanced asset 5 index on day one? Okay. Then at the end of the year, they take another snapshot. Remember, that's point to point, right? 1 year point to point. So they say from day 1 to day 365, how did it perform? Okay. And in this example, let's say it was 10% increase because it went from 5 to 15. So you're like, man, I made a 10% growth on my money year 1. No, because remember, there's a bonus, the participation bonus. So what they do is they take the growth of the index for that year and they multiply it by the bonus. So that comes out to 22.5%. So imagine earning 22.5% on your money in 1 year. The actual index performed at 10%, but because of BlackRock, they give you an extra 225% bonus. So your first year in this example, your money would grow to 22.5%. Okay. Now let's look at year 2. So this says year 2, day 1. Okay. Snapshot. Year 2, day 365, snapshot. And they say, okay, what did the index, the balanced asset 5, do in that second year? Well, it actually lost. See, it went from 15 to 5%. It lost 10%. So does that mean my money lost 10%? No. That just means in year 2, you got a 0. Okay. Why? Because anything, even your bonus, 225, multiplied by 0 is 0. Right? So let's go into year 3. Snapshot. Right? Then you go snapshot, point to point. That year, it went from 5 to 11. So 6% increase. Okay. Then we multiply the participation rate, which remember is the bonus, 225%. So 6% times 225 means 13.5. So year 3, you would grow at 13.5%. Now, Mario, why did they do a bonus? The simple answer is this, sir. The bonus is meant to compensate for any year where there's a 0. So it brings up the average overall. So let me give you an example of how that works. Okay, any questions on this, sir?
Where did the bonus come from?
The bonus is just money that F&G is giving you. Part of, remember the benefits? Hey, what are y'all going to give me? They're giving you a bonus.
Okay.
They're just crediting you that bonus. Okay. So let me go and show you the actual performance of this index. Okay. All right. Can you see the illustration again, sir?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's come down here and I'm going to show you. See, because it's one thing to know how they do it, but it's a completely other thing to actually see how it's actually performed. So from December 2022 to December 12th, from last year, 10 years back, it performed at 13.14%. Okay. That's actual numbers. So imagine you had 288,000 like you do now. And over the last 10 years, it grew at 13%. Would you be happy?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, let me show you. There are a couple of years that were zeros, right? 0, 0, and 0. But you also had a couple of years at 28, 31, 26. So it's not to say, sir, that the balanced asset 5 index grew at 13%. It's to say that it grew and then a participation bonus was stacked on top. So those two together performed at 13%. Bottom line for you and for most of my clients, like, wow, that's all great. I just know that I'm earning and I'm not losing. I love that. Okay. So now, if you wanted to see what was the worst that it did, well, what they did is they looked back for 20 years and they said, over the last 20 years, what was the worst 10-year period? So 20 years back, the worst 10-year period was from 2013 back to 2003. Now, sir, do you remember or know of anything that happened pretty important during those 2003 to 2013?
There was a lot of things. We had a war.
Yes, we had a war for sure, which does impact the market, by the way. But what I was looking at is 2008 crash. Remember the 2008 crash? Look at this is 2 years back to back at zeros. That's 2007, 2008. Okay. Now,
2008, I
during
didn't pay much attention to outside interest. We had Hurricane Ike here. It was all rebuilt.
Yep. See, okay, that makes sense. But you know it did happen, is what I'm getting at, right? And Uh, and I don't know, sir. I don't know, sir, if you're a politically like you're a right side guy or a left side guy or right down the middle. But here's what I do know: most everybody believes in the next 5 to 10 years we're headed for some type of correction and or crash, and that's just because the inflation bubble has to pop sooner or later. Okay, so with that being said, it would be extremely important for you to say, wherever I decide to put my money, I need to know how this vehicle did last time there was a crash. And last time there was a crash, this performed at 8%. Okay. Imagine when people were losing 30 and 40% of their entire life savings, you gained 8% over that 10-year period, right? That's a great thing because, in my opinion, this is the third reason. Remember, I chose this 3 reasons I choose this particular company and product. It's this. First one is because F&G linked up with BlackRock. The second one is BlackRock gives amazing growth percentages. But the third is it's actually shown us that during a crash, it's still going to hold up. Okay. And the highest 10-year period performed at 14.9%. Okay. So these are not projections. These are actual real numbers. Okay. So let me go back up and let's look at your money now. Okay. Pretty simple. So the way I look at your money, okay, you're 57 years old. So the 401ks and the 457s that you have, they're kind of trapped, right? Because you're still working and you're not over 59 and a half. But the old 401k that you rolled into an IRA, about 72,000, okay, you can move that. And here's why you should. You'll never lose again. Okay. Number two, you have no fees, right? And number three, they're not giving you a massive bonus, right? Which is what F&G will give you. So from your perspective, it's kind of like a set it and forget it, man. I'm going to be working Mario for a while anyway, so I just want to move this and grow it. Okay. So if you were to roll over the 72,000, okay, let me maximize this a little. Can you see that okay, sir?
Yeah.
So the first thing I'm going to say is you roll over 72,000, according to BlackRock in the illustrations, you would triple your money and then some in 10 years. Go to 247. Okay. Now, remember I said we're going to come back to that number 10, which is over here. Okay. Number 10 basically says that, hey, you guys are going to give me this bonus. You're going to protect against loss. You're going to help grow me. My requirement is that 72, I'm not going to move it to anywhere else for at least 10 years. Okay. But, sir, that does not mean, let me make sure you understand that does not mean you don't have access to the money. They're just saying that you can't move it somewhere else for 10 years. Okay. So throughout the first 10 years, you're going to have 10% access to the account value with no penalties or fees. Okay. With the exception, okay, of one thing. You still have to abide by that IRA rule. Remember the IRA rule says you can't mess with it till you're 59 and a half?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So for you, you'll move this 72 and you're basically going to let it sit for a couple years. But let's say in year 3, it's now $109,000 in 3 years. I looked at what you said in about 5 years with Allstate, it's grown about $4,000. Here, it's going to grow significantly. Okay. So in year,
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just looked
no
at
problem.
that. And if I did my calculation right, I started with 52 in 2018 and it's 40%.
40% growth.
Yeah.
Okay, so 52 to 72. That's 20 grand. 20 grand in 7 years. 5 years. 3, 4. Yeah, 20 grand in 5 years. Good. That's good. So it's kind of one of those cases for you, sir, where I say, what's Kenny Rogers say? Know when to fold them, right?
Yeah.
When you're up, right? When it's like, hey, good. Hey, thanks, y'all. I'm out. I'm going to go protect it now. So that's good. That's good. Okay. Remember though, this is going to put us in a position where you've grown and then now you're cutting your losses, closing the holes in the boat, and then capitalizing on that even more. Okay. But let's say in year 3, okay, because this would show us at 109 minus 72, this would be a $37,000 increase, okay, in 3 years. So still significantly better. But you would basically have about $11,000 available if you needed it that year. Okay. because you have 10% of the actual money. Okay. Now, um, then it would just continue to grow throughout. Now, if you were to pass away at any time, whatever the account balance is, you actually get paid out to your beneficiary. Okay. But what I did, sir, is so when you open this account, okay, here's my recommendation: open the account and just leave it. When you turn 59 and a half, roll the rest of your money into here as well and combine them together. Here's the reason why: it's a larger snowball. Okay. And I illustrated it for you. Okay. So, and I'm going to send these both to you, sir. One is like a right now plan, and another one's in a couple of years, right? But
Yeah.
if you were to combine it, right, and let 288 sit for 10 years, you have just under $1 million. Okay. Now imagine in year, at 61, now the account value is around 438,000, right? That's 43 grand a year. So 43 divided by 12, you're looking at a $3,500 check combined with your Social Security and or your wife's Social Security at that time. And I know she's got her own things going on as well. So this is a really solid income for you, right?
Yeah.
10% growth. So step one is, in my opinion, this: we move your 72, get it protected, okay, and then you got to set it and forget it anyways. You can't do anything to your 59 and a half, okay? At 60 or 59 and a half, you roll over the second portion, combine it all, and at that time, you can start taking out income if you've retired, or if you haven't retired fully, right? Then you can just keep letting it move. But this is essentially um, my recommendation for you. So, what do you like about what we've covered so far, sir?
Well, I like the idea that eventually it'll be protected, and then it'll just provide me something to live on.
Yes, sir.
I
Any
like
other
that.
questions that you have for me?
No, seems pretty straightforward. I mean, I understand
Yes.
enough to know that I don't want to lose
Yes, sir.
what I've worked for. I know I started late on the retirement issues because I just got started late doing what I'm doing.
Right. Hey, life happens.
Yeah.
Ultimately, as we close, sir, I'm just going to say this. There's nothing better sometimes than doing just an old fashioned T chart, right? Straight line down the middle and then across the top. And on one side, you put 401ks and IRAs, and on one side, you put fixed index annuity. Pick where I'm at now. Can I lose money? Yes. Where I go, can I lose money? No. Where I'm at now, do they have a bonus? Are they adding to my money? No. Is there a bonus here? Yes. Where am I now? Am I paying fees? Yes. Where I'm going? No. Right? Do I have liquidity here? No. Do I have liquidity here? Yes. So when you look at it like that, it's like, man, I remember at the beginning I said, oh man, this sounds too good to be true. That's my job, right? The other half that is, it kind of sounds like a no-brainer. It kind of is, right? But it really does come back to somebody's risk tolerance. And it sounds to me like you're done with the risk. Like you're done with losing. It's like, hey man, I might have been a risk taker, a little bit of a gambler back in the day. Not anymore, right? And if that's the case, I think this is a really good move for you. So here's what we can do, sir. Let me First off, I'm going to email both of these to you. Okay. Now, let's see. Today is Wednesday or Thursday, excuse me. Um, what say? Usually, I say let's reconvene in about 48 hours, but that's Saturday. What does Monday look like for you, sir? Maybe around 10 or 12.
I'm tied up that morning, so be afternoon.
Okay. Okay. How is 1 o'clock? Okay.
Yeah, I won't. Really wouldn't have time to talk about it with my wife for the next, I don't know, few days because I'm working all
Okay.
weekend. I never really see her.
Okay. You want to just put it on Tuesday then? Give you an extra day.
Mm, yeah, we can aim for that.
Okay. So what we'll do is let's do noon on Tuesday, and we'll just coordinate. If If by chance you need an extra day or so, I'll let you know. But essentially, what we want to do is at this point, it's real simple. Okay. So, first off, I just want you to know, full disclosure, 100%. I'm not a high pressure person. It's not my jam. I don't do that. But the one thing to keep in the back of your mind is while you're going through the decision making process, then we're going to go through the approval process. And that could take anywhere from a week to more than likely 5 to 6 weeks to basically go through approval. Then they would have to move the funds over, all of that. While that time is happening, your money is in the market and it could lose. Okay. And so some people are like, hey, man, I like it. Like for you, man, I'm up right now. I'd hate to lose it. So let's just stay on Tuesday at 12. I will send you some. Sure, you haven't responded, but that's not to say that you. Are you receiving my text messages when I get them? When I send them out to you?
Yeah, I have. I just usually don't see
Okay.
them for a couple hours, and then I'm
It's
thinking
okay.
it's
No worries.
too late. But yeah, I've been getting them.
Okay, good. So what I'll do is I'll send you some like reminder text messages. And if you have to move for to Wednesday further out on Tuesday or before that, just let me know. And if your wife would like to be on with me, we can schedule that as well. Okay.
Okay.
Awesome.
Tuesday
So
might
John, I'm
be
going to
good
send
for
you
that.
an Okay. All right. So we're at Tuesday at 12. Let me know if that works, or even a little later or whatnot. Tuesday evenings are usually pretty good for me. And the reason behind that is because I coach both of my sons in football, and our football practices are Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So Tuesday and Thursday, if we did have to go to like in the evening ish, we can do that. So just let me know, okay? But we'll
Okay.
leave it at 12 for now. All right. So John, I'm going to send you an email just shortly. I'll follow up with a text to let you know that the email came through. But otherwise, you have a great weekend, sir, and God bless you. I look forward to speaking with you again.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, John. Bye bye.
Bye bye.